Ekam aksharam hृदि nirantaram bhasate swayam likyate kadam. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yaham aham iti sakshat atmarupena bhati hृदि vishamanasa swam चिन्वता मच्यता अनचलनाथा आत्मनिष्ठो देहं ब्रह्म जडात्मकम् आहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तभावशक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो रधियः दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. Namo Ramana. Just give me a moment. Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Dakshinamurthy Stotram. The original is by Adi Shankara, Bhagavad Padar, and we are relying on the Tamil translation by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. We are in the 5th verse. If we take the first verse to be Vishwam Darpana Drishimana Nagari, then we are in the 5th verse. As we have seen through Kanakamal's commentary, relying on Bhagavan's teachings to Muruganar and the whole team, that the verses can be looked at as the first 3 verses are about the Vishwam, the next 3 verses are about the Jiva, and the verses 7, 8, 9 are about Ishvara, and the verse number 10 is about the Phalam. When we go with that, there are many ways in which these verses have been divided. There have been lots of commentaries for long periods of time. So we are relying on this division. Therefore, we are in the second verse about the Jiva, about the inquiry into Jiva. We had seen how the Jiva can be considered not as the Jiva, but as the Mahadeepa present, going through the Indriyas like the eyes and saying, I know. Janamiti tameva bhantam anubhati. All this samastam jagat is having the Chaitanya to reveal itself only because you are shining. O Dakshinamurthy, you are shining as the I am, and it is you who go out through these Indriyas, taking on the role as a Jiva in every instance, and say that I know through the senses, I know the other thoughts, and I know that I know that I am. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayedam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. We come to the next. Suppose we can't see it as the one ghatam, that there is only one body and one Mahadeepam, which is going through the one body, and that Mahadeepam only imagines itself to be the many jivas. Suppose we are not able to get that ekatva, then the Guru goes and says, Udal Uyir Porihal Bundi. Udal Uyir Porihal Bundi. Ondrupal Ahamai Tervar. Madandayar Balar Andar. Madayare Muda Vadi. Madamayal Vilayum Amma Mayakame Maikum Jnana Tadayaru Guruvam Anda Dakshinamurthy Potri. Udaluyir Porihal Pundi. Ondrum Pal Ahama Tervar. Madandayar Balar Andar. Madayare Muda Vadi. Madamayal Vilayum Amma Mayakame Maikum Jnana Tadayaru Guruvam Anda Dakshinamurthy Potri. In Sanskrit, Deham Prana Apindriyan Yapi Chalam Buddhim Cha Shunyam Viduhu Stribalanda Jadopa Mas Twahamiti Branta Brusham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Deham Pranam Apindriyan Yapi Chalam Buddhim Cha Shunyam Viduhu Stribalanta Jadopa Mastvahamiti Branta Brusham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. That is the verse before us today. It is said by some of the commentators that the first 4 verses indicate the toughest concepts to be absorbed. From here on, it is all easy verses to assimilate and adopt. But once you come to adopting them in the Nididhyasana, all the verses are equally capable of taking us towards the self, depending on which appeals to us, which verse appeals to us. This verse is when we are not able to see the Mahadeepa. The Mahadeepa, that is, there is only one body, and within this, there is a Mahadeepam within me, which first splits itself into as though there are many eyes, and goes out and superimposes those mental divisions as many personalities, the good and the bad, the seer seeing seen, the knower knowing known. These are all present in the mind. But then I go out through the one kadam and superimpose all that knowledge onto the Jagat, where that knowledge is really not there. So I understand that the sensory world does not have good or bad, does not have the CRC. It is merely a flow of atoms, but it is all these are in the mind, and the mind itself is lit up by one eye, and the one who knows that eye, the lamp which knows itself as the knower, that is Sri Dakshinamurthy. Only when the lamp is interested in the non-self, it becomes caught up in the Vyamoha. When that lamp is understanding that it is itself the light of consciousness which exists and shines, after the shining of which both the Sthula and Sukshma objects all shine as though they have chit. That self-knowing self, the I that knows that it is I that know, that is Sri Dakshinamurthy. And to that Dakshinamurthy, who is ever present inside the Gadam, to him is my namaskarams, was the previous verse. But we feel there are really many personalities outside, and each of them impact us. Each of them have an effect on us. The consciousness does not feel that it is allowing the objects to impact it, but it is blindly reacting. We see our parents get old. They are not able to function like old. They get into non-moving mode. They are wobbly. But many of their vasanas regarding what they are capable of doing are still there. So, while taking care of them, while taking care of the old people, which is really us only, what is this few years time? How 50 years, 40 years, 60 years has gone? Another 15 or 10 will go, and we may find ourselves in that kind of position. But how irritated we will be. Suppose we are not able to go out because they are really afraid. The ones who held our hands and took long distances, showed us the world and taught us not to be afraid. Now in old age, they are afraid. At which point they are going to fall. They are afraid to step down, go out. And you have to be with them lovingly. And the thought will come, oh, because I am here, I am not able to take myself to some other place. That irritation, once you understand, that is the Charvakas, that we say that Deham is I. So the first two lines in this verse is about negating all the upadhis which are the non-self. All the upadhis which are the non-self, because of the non-enquiry into who we are, we identify. Now, for a moment, let us see the difference between identification and attachment. The Bhakti Marga generally allows us to start with attachment. That is, what worries we have about completing our duties, what worries we have about those who are dependent on us. All this we learn to surrender that attachment to the deity. Here, Sri Dakshinamurthy. So, it is dealing with the mind or mamakara, taking the body to be I. The mamakara for the body to be I is where the sadhana is allowed to begin. But see the efficacy of Jnana Marga. Efficacy of Jnana Marga is that it comes to the root of attachment. What is this root of attachment? The consciousness does not merely say this non-self is mine. It is saying this non-self is me. That is the critical difference between the Jnana Marga, which asks us to inquire into the veiling, and Bhakti Marga, which allows us to start with the projection, with our relationships with the projected world. So in Bhakti Marga, we will all remember the dealing of Mirabai with the Jnana Margi. The Jnana Margi, who is also partly Bhakti Margi, they want to meet each other. But then that great person, he says, how can I meet a Stree? How I can meet a lady? And then Mirabai is said to have sent a note. Oh, I am so glad that there are two Purushas now to protect all the Jivas. I was all along thinking that there was only one Purusha and that all the Jivas are Stree, are this fraction trying to unite with the whole. So I was considering that all the Jivas are to be called as Stree and the Bhakti is allowed as the marital bhava of uniting with the one Purusha. Keep that in mind, that in Bhakti Marga we are to consider all Jivas to be only of one gender. If today they would have put the hyphen male or female, it doesn't really matter. That if you are a Jiva, you are aiming for union with the Param. But in Jnana Marga, what is the efficacy required and helped with the Guru's grace is that we are asked to go to the root of such attachments. The root of attachments is because the Jiva or the consciousness is now identified with the Upadhis. Identified is the strongest form of attachment. It is only when you ask, how are you? Then how is your body doing nowadays? You had that fall. Then you say, my body is all right now. Only when we specifically inquire like that or think like that, we will say my body. Otherwise, while dealing with the world, it is not really important which theory we subscribe. It is not really important at all. How we behave, how we actually deal in our daily affairs. Do we deal in our daily affairs as we are this body, we are this mind, we are these indriyas, we are this buddhi, then, or we are the void, then we are supposed to be one of those. The Charvakas are supposed to be those who believe that the Atma is merely the God. So the Atma and the identity have been developed as whole branches of learning, whole branches of coming to spirituality. The Charvakas are who consider that the Atma or God is merely restricted to the body, and the body's death is the end of everything. There is no karma, there is no right or wrong, there is only earn as much you can in whatever way you can and enjoy and die. With the death of the body is the mukti according to them. What is that mukti? The inquiry has been made in that branch. But then you can understand that the consciousness has now identified with the body. And next, there will be some inquirers who are inquiring that, see, the body is dependent on the prana. Therefore, when the prana is not there, we don't say the body is there. Therefore, we are not, the Atma is not the body, the Atma is the energy giving prana. And even while in the body, when we are identified with the prana, we are more concerned with the happiness through fulfilling our hunger, fulfilling our thirst, fulfilling our need for energy-based action. So what is exactly inquired into in this verse? Where exactly we find our sukha and dukkha. If we are finding our sukha and dukkha at merely the bodily level, as the body gets older, it gets diseases. It starts getting dismantled. If you are overly dismayed, if there is a lot of anxiety about the triglyceride, this or that, and all, 2 points more, 1 point less, you go and put yourself into a course for 36 days. One parameter goes, another parameter comes. Now, that is identification with the body. With a lot of anxiety, you feel that the body is you. That is the charvakas. But when we have our happiness and sorrow, by the way in which we fulfill our energy requirements, the hunger, the capacity of the lungs, the strength in the body, all these things, we say we are prana. The atma is only to the extent of the prana. Then there are a group of people who inquire into, no, in deep sleep, they still remain with the observation of the body. The body is still there, the breath is still there, but since the indriyas are not alive, neither the body nor the breath is of any use. They study another body only here, but they find that the indriyas are the key. So, deham, pranam, api, indriya, indriyanyapi. Some of the vadinaha, they will say that the atma is only, it is not the mahadipam, it is the jiva clearly, and the jiva is upadhi bound, based on which, as the jiva is upadhi bound, they are going to develop a theory for the whole world, that the world is merely material. They become charvakas. The world is merely based on the prana shakti. The world is merely based on indriya, because they study up to deep sleep. They find that in deep sleep, the breath is at minimum level required and it does not do any work, and the body cannot do any work, and the indriyas go out of action. When the indriyas are out of action, you don't have perception of the world or perception of the breath. So the atma is not the body, is not the breath, which become useless when the indriyas are not there. Therefore, indriyas are actually the atma. Some of them they say. Then there are those who say that the atma is the mind, the thoughts, and in the thoughts itself, they say chalan buddhi. Chalan buddhi is, it is said that the buddhi has this nature of flickering, as appearing and disappearing, appearing and disappearing. It is suggested by some of the commentators that the Acharya is here putting aside the moment by moment living branch of Buddhism. That there is a branch of Buddhism which has this feeling that life and the Atma, as it comes through the flickering intellect, the whole creation is moment by moment living. We have had in my journey in this area, I have met practitioners who try to live moment by moment along with the changes in the buddhi. They are called as kshanika vadinaha. That you can understand that Bhagavan uses this kshanika vadam in Ulladunarpadu just to bring up to Yugapat Srishti. As to Yugapat Srishti, but it doesn't stop there. If you can recall verse number 7 of Ulladunarpadu, Bhagavan says, Ulagum, Arivum, Ondrai Udit, Ondrai Vodungum, Enum, Ulahe, Arivu Tannal Ulirum, Ulaharivu, Tondri Maraidarku Idanai, Tondri Marayad Ulirum, Pudrama Akde Purul. He brings us to Sri Dakshinamurthy Swami, who is the Pundra Purul, by saying that Kshanikavada, okay, that the world and the mind at the Kshanika level both arise and set together. However, the Indriya Jagat, which you can say as material, breath or senses, they arise and set only dependent on the mind. Therefore, the mind becomes a priori. If you seek the source of the mind, you find the source of the Indriya Jagat. There Bhagavan says that the Kshanikavadina, the moment by moment appearing and disappearing, still has appearance and disappearance. But that appearance and disappearance of the mind, every moment happens only holding on to Sri Dakshinamurthy, who is the unmoving, unchanging, self-luminous self. That is how Bhagavan deals with the Kshanika Vadita. So therefore, Deham, Pranam, Apindriyan, Yapi, Chalam Buddhi. These are all not I. So this is what we have to delete or turn away from in our self-enquiry. Are these the self? If you get thoughts of the body, if you get thoughts of the world, if you get thoughts of the breath related, if you get thoughts of the data which you have learned, if you get thoughts of the right and the wrong, cause and effect as per the intellect, which are appearing like that and disappearing like that, we should not follow that. In Atma Vicharam, what does Bhagavan say? Do not follow any of those thoughts related to any of those upadhis. Diligently let go of each of those thoughts, whichever object it may be related to, and hold for whom is this thought. Till when? Till all the vasanas related to Deham, Pranam, Indriya, Manam, Buddhi, all this, till they all completely subside and one abides with the Adi Guru, one abides with the Mauna Guru. Till then, do Atma Vichara. So, the very practice of this verse is what is there in Atma Vichara. Deham, Pranam, Apindriyapi, Apindriyanyapi, Chalam Buddhin, Cha, Shunyam Viduhu. While dealing with the Shunyam, Bhagavan gives us one more additional support. He says that while translating, Udal, Uir, Porigal, Pundi, Ondrupad, Ahamai Perver. What Bhagavan says? The world, the body, the prana, the indriyas, and the mind and buddhi all submerge into the void, where void of deep sleep, Ondrupad. Therefore, if one does not want to deal with all the other vadinaha, the charvakas or other branches of learning, which we will be finding in one more verse in detail, will be going. If we are not wanting to go through all those segments, if you deal with the deep sleep, that is enough. Because this is another branch of Buddhism which says that the final experience of enlightenment is one of Shunya, is one of void. And Bhagavan clearly says the Atma Swarupa is not void. Arivu, Ariyamayim, Atradarivame, Ariyumadu, Unmai Arivahadu, Aridarkum, Arivittarkum, Anniyamendrai Avirvatal, Tan, Arivahum, Padandru Ari. He clearly says that the final Atma Swarupa is Purna Chit, which is ever aware of its existence. Therefore, it is Purna Vastu. How can it be void? But there is a whole branch of Buddhism which, when inquiring into the transient nature of the body, the transient nature of prana, the transient nature of indriyas, it works out all this. It works out the transient nature of mana buddhi, but then it concludes that these are all not there. Therefore, the finality is void. Bhagavan says, if you understand and inquire into that void, there was a quote which was there in our group, where in one of the early talks itself, one of the people come and say to Bhagavan, all these people seem to know so much, but I don't know anything. I am not knowing any of these things. And when they are all discussing, I am flabbergasted. I am completely at loss what to do. I don't know any of these things. And Bhagavan says, know that you don't know anything. That is enough. That will be Purna knowledge. And this quote was there. And Dilipji had put one very beautiful addendum to that. Very nice one. He said, those of us who consider we are all knowledgeable, we have to first come to the point that we don't know, that we have to erase thought by thought and come to the point where that person is already there. He's saying, at least I don't know. So whatever we feel we know through the buddhi, mano, indriya and all that, Dilipji had put that code. You can go back to our group and see that. So a very nice comment he had made, that we have to first delete all that, come to the point where that person was there, come to the void. That is, I do not know anything. I do not know anything is the void of the mind. There also you are there. And this is not a theoretical thing. You will find that in Atma Vicharam, many of the sadhakas come to Bhagavan and they describe the experience of this void. Chadwick says to Bhagavan, Bhagavan, I come to a point where no objects are there, but then I am afraid of the darkness. And Bhagavan says that fear is because you have no parichaya with the Atma yet. Are you not there when you are looking at the darkness? Akka used to say this, that even in a dark room, you can announce yourself, I am there, that you don't need the light to know that you are there. Therefore, Bhagavan would advise Chadwick or would give the Upadesha, see, you are seeing the darkness. You are forgetting that you are the light, that you are ever present. So, inquire who is seeing the void, who is seeing the darkness. Many of the sadhakas, they would report to Bhagavan, we are coming to a blank. We are coming to a blank. And many of us will be experiencing that when practicing Atma Vicharam, that we have come to a blank, but we don't know what it is. Initially, we'll say, what? All this only to come to blank? And one of the other sadhakas known to me here who practices Atma Vicharam, she used to tell, initially I feel that was a blank, and now I understand that is Purnam. That is enlightenment, and that is the transformation the self-enquiry starts bringing. Initially, you are still focused on the outside. You see that the enquiry takes you to a blank, to the shunyam. But that shunyam is not shunyam because the fullness of the self is there. The self-luminous self is there. You have to just pursue who is seeing the blank, who is getting no answer. And this fellow is saying you have to be satisfied with no answer. No, it is not a blank. It is sarvam. It is everything. It is the simultaneous answer to all the doubts. It is the fulfillment of all desires. And that is where Bhagavan takes us to the Purna Vastu, the Udaluyir Porihal Pundi. All this, you need not inquire into them separately, because if you are inquiring into deep sleep, Bhagavan will repeatedly bring that question. You can remember anybody saying, I am in this trouble, I am in that trouble, or I have this doubt. Bhagavan will ask, was this trouble there in deep sleep? Was this doubt there in deep sleep? That means where he is taking? He is taking to the whole objective space becoming blank, but then he doesn't leave you there. He says, are you not there? Is the Atma Swarupa merely void? Atma Swarupa is not void. It is the self-luminous self which is ever aware of its eternal existence. So it is the existence consciousness which is absolutely not the void. So, Udal Uyir Porigal Pundi Undrupal Ahamai Tervar. This Madandayar Balar and the Madayare Mudavadi, we can take it as one thing that those who don't understand. The use of the words three, we can take it from Bhakti Marga, that all of us, all the jivas are to be considered the same. So that way we can reconcile that. There is a reconciliation provided in the Ramakrishna Ashram Manasola's commentary, that in those days the women were treated like that in society. That is what is brought out in that was commonly mentioned. But then we can take it that all of us, Bhagavan would equate all human beings. There would be these two people this is accounted by Kanakamal, and Kanakamal would say two of the youngsters belonging to the mantra chanting community, the Brahmin community, and they have this practice of doing the funeral rites for the members of the society. So the ghats are all from town, Tiruvannamalai town, you have to pass the ashram to go to some of the ghats because that is in the southern side. And these two guys, two brahmacharis, youngsters, they have just gone to attend to the rites of somebody, finish that, and you obviously have to go in empty stomach. They have completed all that and they are returning. And when they are passing ashram, it's around 11:30, and their stomachs are literally on fire. And one of them says, we haven't gone and taken bath and purified ourselves with mantras. I don't know whether we can go and have food. The other says, for food, which is the basic requirement, there are no rules. We can go. And while arguing like this, Bhagavan passes by and they immediately ask Bhagavan, Bhagavan, I am saying that we have just now done the obsequies, the final rites. It is the laws of life. So there will be negative emotion inside us. Our jiva will be having that negative emotion. For that, we have to do the mantras, make it positive, give up the negative emotions and replace it with the mantra japa, the shakti, and then only we have to partake of the food, because the food also will get into the negative emotions which we have. This is the rule. Should I not go home, do that, do snana, do the mantras, and then Bhagavan says, absolutely, you go home. But the other immediately interjects, how come Bhagavan for food? It is said in Shastras, for annam, no purification is required. Annam itself is purification. Bhagavan said, yes, you can go and have food. Then both of them are surprised and ask, how can you say he is also correct and I am also correct? And Bhagavan says, see, so far as we take the body to be I, so far as we take this body, which is a walking corpse, to be I, all of us have the same pollution. All of us have the same pollution. You can't go into that hall and find one who is not having that pollution. So all of us are having the same. So it does not matter whether you have food there or don't have food there. But if you have a rule in your mind that you should not have food, then you observe that rule. Your Sukshma Sharira should live by that rule. Then only it will learn what it is to inquire into the Atma Swarupa. Unless the Atma is willing to live by the rules it has framed for itself, it won't be able to take itself to further inquiry. It is slipping. Even in the dhyana, it has taken for itself. So let him follow the rule he is having. You follow the rule you are having. Till when? Till the I am the body thought is completely erased. Till then, there is no difference between male, female, this person, that person. All of us are of the same nature, is what Bhagavan says. Why I went into that is that Bhagavan has also included that word, the Stri. Therefore, Bhagavan considers everyone as the same. And that is how we can take that. That because we are so engrossed in the I am the body idea, we are all of the same nature and we mistake one of these koshas. The beautiful thing is that during a day, we will be having identification with various koshas. Sometimes we will have a very rough sound coming, we will get irritated. That means our irritation or the dukkha is at the deham level. Then one of the indriyas may not be functioning properly, or our energy levels, our hunger is what is occupying us, or we take all happiness from food. Some little bit more salt, we say you have put so much salt that it is almost like dehydrated food. You might have as well kept it as dehydrated vegetable. You are calling it sambar. That means at that time we are having the hunger and the appeasement of hunger or the prana as our identity. Many a time when somebody whom we give value in some relationship, will say that person is so and so, my friend. When he abuses me, I will be the most hurt. When somebody in the road unknown to me abuses me, nothing will happen. But when my friend abuses me, I will be the deeply hurt person. That means my consciousness has identified with my mind, with my identity and buddhi, and is giving value to that other person and is getting hurt. Whereas if I am self-attentive at that time, when somebody is hurting me, when somebody is, and I am allowing myself to be hurt by somebody, when I hold the Atma Swarupa, then the hurt is not received. Buddha will say to an abuser that if I don't receive the gift you are giving, with whom does the gift remain? So the karma cycle at the Deha, Prana, Indriya, Mana, Buddhi and individual level, the karma cycle you can see that the karma cycle is cut if you don't react. If you don't react to that person whom you have set personality, you have given him a value that that person is a friend. That is why what he is saying is taken through the Indriyas, and you really take that that's real. Yes, he is breaking my identity. I am a good person. He is breaking that, and I am feeling so bad about myself. Whereas at that time, when I don't identify with the buddhi or the persona and hold the I, hold my self-attention, then I don't receive the hurt. The karma remains with the giver. Buddha says, if I don't accept the gift you are giving, with whom does it remain? It remains with you. So that actually makes you work on the karma you have generated. And you don't get the satisfaction of me suffering and you seeing and getting a satisfaction out of it. The karma cycle gets cut there, he says. So these are very practical instructions by the Acharya, not to identify and take happiness at the Deham, Pranam, Indriya, Mano, Buddhi, not even saying that I know all this is nothing. Then you will be interested in telling others what you are holding on to that, and that is valued as nothing. So the nothing is not to be taken as the reality of the Atma Swarupa there. There is only the Purna, that you are the Purna Vastu. You cannot be hurt or you cannot get any real happiness or sorrow from any of these upadhis. That is the turning inward, and that is the letting go of the Bhranti Vadinaka, the confusion that there is in the mind, and you want to enforce that you are right by saying one of this is the Atma Swarupa. You let that go. When you let that go and hold the I, what happens? You have followed the Guru Upadesha. You have let go of the non-self. And now you are totally self-luminous as the Atma Swarupa. Only the I is going on. The self-luminous being is there. The I am is the only thing with which one is identified. Then you have followed the Guru Upadesha. What happens there? That Vyamoha is broken. The Maya Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine. Maya Shakti Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine. What is that Mahavyamoha? Which appears as Maya outside, which is in the area of attachment. From identification, it is only identification of the Upadhi, which is Mahavyamoha. The Atma, when it identifies with the Upadhi, then the attachment into that whole world starts coming in. So the attachment is not really out there. Don't blame the abuser. Take the responsibility in yourself. Keep the ball in your court. The buck really stops here. What one has to do? Not identify with these upadhis as I. Keep the self-luminous I as the only identity. The attachment area simply drops off. The Mahavyamoha Samharini. Once while the COVID was on, Akka and I, we jointly decided that I should talk on the comparison with Atma Vidya by Bhagavan and the verses by Nandakumar Swamigal on the Atma. Same Atma Vidya. Bhagavan says Atma Vidya is Ayye Ati Sulabham. Muruganar starts off like that, gives it to Bhagavan as Ayye Ati Sulabham. Nandakumar writes Ayye Metta Kadinam. That Atma Vidya is the most difficult. And in my investigation into both these songs, what was discovered was, if you go and take the journey towards the self with all this, Deham, Pranam, Apindriyani, Api, Maha, all those things, then you have to cover three voids. You have to cover the waking state, you have to cover the dream, you have to cover the deep sleep, filled with many data. They are called as Muppad. three voids. Three voids you have to cross. But how is Bhagavan helping us to cross? Bhagavan is helping us by making us not even attached to the upadhis. Just go back to the I, not attached to the upadhis, which makes us cross three different voids. So what is Ayya Mettakadinam for Nandana is made direct and most easy by Bhagavan by making us not identify with the upadhis but hold the I. Karmadi Kattamila. Janmadi Nashtamila, Yammarga Madanina, Immarga Mikkelide. Sol Manada Tanuvil Kanmadi Siridindri, Summa Mardirika. When the I wants to identify with any of these upadhis, get it back and hold the I. Amma Ahatil Anma Jodiye. The Anma Jodi, which they have to cross three parts and come, three voids and come, is held directly by freeing oneself of the identification with these upadhis. That is why he is called as Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita. It is a Vilasa, it's a playground for Maya Shakti. If the moment you are attached to the body, it appears as billions of light years of the cosmos there. The moment you identify with the mind, Pitruloka, Gandharvaloka, Devaloka, all those start coming. All those you have to cross, whereas Bhagavan makes us hold the I and cross all that. He makes it Iye Ati Sulabham. And that is why Dakshinamurthy Swamigal is called as Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha. The Muppar is Mahavyamoham. It is Mahamaya. That Mahamaya is crossed by putting attachment to second grade and identification as the root problem. The I rising and identifying with the upadhis. But what do you cross? Cross all the three voids of waking, dream, and deep sleep and come to the Atmaswarupa by directly holding the I. That is why Dakshinamurthy Swamigal is called as Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Mahavyamoha Samharine. He has completely destroyed the work of Maya Shakti. Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye is how the verse ends. Let us sit in Atmavicharam till 8 o'clock. That's about 10 minutes from now. That is how the blessings of the Mauna Guru Dakshinamurti, who is none other than Adi Shankara himself, who is none other than Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Ramana clarifies that Adi Shankara's parentage is that Mauna. Bhagavan's parentage is that Mauna. He says that Mauna Guru, Vare, that Mauna being ever present, they don't identify with biological entity nor about any lineages that are there in the mind. They are directly sourced from the Mauna itself. That is why they are Mauna Guru. And it is the blessing of the Mauna Guru, the Adi Dakshinamurti, Adi Shankara, and Bhagavan Sri Ramana, that we are given this blessing of crossing the Muppad, the Maya Shakti, Vilasa Kalpita, Mahavyamoha, by the simple act of not identifying with these upadhis and directly holding the I, which is what we are going to do for the next 10 minutes or so. Ujjwalji, Revatima, I can trouble you for the time. Okay, number. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, sir. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the sun in all beings. By the immense grace of the self that shines, the sun of the self that shines within us in all beings, as was described in the earlier verse, and which is embodied by the same grace as Bhagavan Ramana. We in this today's satsang have the blessing of meditating on the Dakshinamurthy Stotram with Nandakumar ji. And today we were taken through the entire gamut of Indian philosophies, beginning from the Charvaka philosophy onwards, right up to the Shunyavadam. We were taken through all the Vadas, the philosophies. I think this is maybe a very unique interpretation or unique delving meditation on this verse. And of course, the other aspect of the Deha, Prana, Manas, and the different aspects of our identity, that was also covered. Only thing is that very beautifully each aspect of these were linked to one philosophy. How the philosophy is dwelling on these aspects. That was, at least for me, it was a new analysis, a new linkage of the philosophies, and it makes us understand how one can to get caught in that realm to such a degree that it can become a philosophy in itself. The propagation of the body as the ultimate reality can be taken to the extent of being a philosophy. So that is the depth to which the wrong identification can go. It was another revelation which came to us today. And the three parts, all the waking, dream and deep sleep, those three states were also crossed for us through a dwelling into self-enquiry. So Bhagavan crosses all these states for us in Upadesha Saram by saying Vigrihendriya Pranadhitamaha Nahamekasat Tad Jadam Hi Asat. So he says that the body, the Indriya, the Prana, Vigraha, Indriya, Prana, the Dhi, which is the Manas and the Buddhi, and the Shunya, Tamaha, Naham Eka Sat. That is what Bhagavan tells us in Upadesha Saram. So they are all Jada. They are all Jada because they are all identification with some sort of a body. Even the Shunya, which seems to be the subtlest, is identification with a form. Even though I am saying I am having a blank, the blank also is identification because it is identification with non-knowing or not seeing. As it may be in physical darkness, we can understand that when we do not see something, we say, if it is dark, we say, I don't see anything. We don't say, I see darkness. So if I say I see darkness, then it becomes evident that there is light in my eyes, which is seeing the darkness. But when I say I don't see anything, I think there is a void or there is a blank. So the blank, an experience of blank, can actually never be there. If we say we experience a blank, That means there is somebody who's experiencing it. And if somebody who's experiencing it exists, how can it be a blank or how can it be a void? So the experience of shunya can be or is an identified experience. However, in self-enquiry also, Nandakumar said that we go into a particular point where we seem to have hit a blank. Now, how can this seem to have hit a blank happen? It happens because when there is an absence and we come out of the absence of thoughts, at a time when thoughts are absent, at the time when there is total void, there can be no reporting of the void. But if there is an absence of thoughts, if there is a silence, and one comes out of that, just as it happens for us even in deep sleep, what do? We see that state in relation to the waking state or the thought state. When we look at the thoughtless state, in relation to the state which we are used to, which is thoughts, then we say that was a blank, that was a void. It is only when we compare it. Now, how can we say that when we are experiencing a blank also, it's only we should be after coming out of it that we say it is a blank, isn't it? During a blank we cannot say. During deep sleep we cannot declare that we do not know anything. Only in relation to the identified state we say something else was a void. So if we thus define it, it becomes an identification. But actually that state is beyond definition. Since we seek to define it with reference to our current understanding, it becomes a void. So this can happen either after a stretch of a blank, or it can happen intermittently also, because how we actually store experience or the movement of thoughts is also quick changeover from one thought to another. When there is a quick changeover of one thought to another, it may sometimes seem to us to occur parallelly. Bhagavan says at one time there can be only one thought. But we feel there are hundreds of thoughts in our mind at one particular point of time. How does that happen? Because of what is called oscillation of attention. The attention moves so fast from one to another that it appears to occur simultaneously. Or one may say it is like the movement of a cartoon film which doesn't exist. The animation movie doesn't exist. There's no movement in that movie. But because of the stills being run with such speed, it looks like an animation. So the experience of blank is also only with identification. When we recognize that there can be really no experience of blank, or there can be no blank at all. Na shunyamekam. Bhagavan says in Ulladu Narpadu, as Nandakumarji very lovingly pointed out to us that verse as well. It cannot be a blank. It cannot be a void. Satyam prapurnam. It is fullness. How can it be a void? It cannot be a void. So that is also something which we have to understand, that if there is experience of any of these kinds, if there is a thought of any of this kind, thought relating to the body, a thought relating to prana, a thought relating to emotions, a thought relating to a void. So this is all what we were taken through today, that no matter what the thought is, when a thought is there, when there is an experiencer and an experience, we can know that We are not abiding in the non-dual self. So we understand that. And we have to inquire. Again, one more very beautiful insight which happened today. Although I was present when Nandakumarji spoke about the Anmavidya Kirtanam and the three voids of the waking, dream and deep sleep, what struck me today was that normally we take the deep sleep to be a void. But we think that dream and waking are full of something. But there are the three voids that have to be crossed. Nandakumarji said, in the identification, three voids to be crossed. Waking is equally a void and dream is equally a void. None of these have any meaning whatsoever. They are the blank. They are the blank. They are the void. The waking is the void. The dream is the void. The deep sleep is the void. And we are giving a lot of value to all these three voids. Sometimes we don't give value to deep sleep, but we do in another sense. So long as we are giving value to a void, how can we abide in the truth, which is the limitless treasure, which is the fullness? So we have to recognize that none of this is meaningful. Not even one part of it is meaningful. Not even the tiniest aspect of it is meaningful. And turn back, no matter which form it rises in, and surrender to the self, which Bhagavan says is grace, which is the Guru and the self are one and the same. So that's why it is surrender to Dakshinamurthy as the Adi Guru. It means surrender to the self and to the self alone. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana.